Good morning. This is October 4th, my youngest daughter Mandy's birthday. Happy birthday, Mandy. But more importantly, or more significant for a wider base, this is October 4th is the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. And talking about a fellow that really changed the course of how the church looked at things. Most of the sisters I know are Franciscan sisters, whether they're Sisters of Christian Charity here in Manitowoc or Bay Settlement sisters up in Green Bay. But St. Francis of Assisi, he's born in 1182. He's a rich fellow. His dad's got a a cloth and clothing business that's just doing extremely well. So he's a very well-endowed fellow. He has a great life. He's very charismatic. So he's very popular with all the kids and everything else. He, I think he's about 20 years old. He goes off to war. And they're fighting. One city's going to have a war with another city. Well, he gets caught. He gets put in jail for a whole year. So a whole year of his life is just like held in confinement. He comes out of that, comes home, and that took a lot to get that to happen. But then he gets sick. He gets very sick. And in the course of this, he has some kind of experience. Now, I had a similar issue where I got sick and had quite a phenomenal religious experience. But his was never really quite well defined. What was defined was the fact that sometime after this, after he's well, he's riding along on his horse and he sees a leper. Now, he had always disdained the poor, just couldn't stand being around those people. It just seemed dirty to him. Well, he saw this leper and he stopped, he got off of his horse and he took off his cloak and he gave it and put it on the leper. And in that moment, he felt this urge of something, and he just pulled the leper in and kissed his face. And it was a transforming moment for Francis. He went back and tried to figure out what in the heck happened, as we often would do if we have some kind of experience. And in this, trying to figure out what he's doing, he's praying in this broken down church. I think it's St. Damien or something like that. He's praying in this church. And as he's praying, he hears a voice, and this is a lot of prayer, not just a little moment of prayer, but he hears a voice that says, "Rebuild my church." And he looks around at this broken down church and, okay, he has to do that. Well, where does a fellow who suddenly decides to rebuild a church get his money? He gets it from his father. So he starts taking stuff from his father's factory and selling that off and having money and starting to work on physically fixing up this church. Well, as you can imagine, if your son is starting to take from your business and all of a sudden things are starting to go a little on the south side, you get pretty upset. And his father did. His father pulled him in and dragged him in front of the bishop and said, "Listen, I want a right judgment here." And Francis said, "You're right. All these things of yours belong to you. I need to repay them. I'll give you everything that I've taken back. And matter of fact, I'm going to take off my very clothing and give that to you." And he stood there naked in front of his father and the bishop. And they're aghast. And the bishop takes a cloak, a raggedy cloak of sorts, and puts it around him to have some decency. And that's when Francis started. He starts a life of like a pure following of Jesus. And what does it mean? It's kind of like you read the Beatitudes and it tells you what to do. He tried to help the poor. He continued working on his church, but more and more he started to understand that helping his church was a spiritual requirement, not just a physical of the building. And as he was considered a fool at first by many of the people of Assisi, gradually there's this undercurrent of young people that came out and started following him. A girl heard him speaking, a beautiful girl, St. Clare of Assisi, as she will become. But at that time, she was just a young girl who heard him, had just felt on fire for this faith, this clean, simple, pure way of going. So she goes to him at night in this clandestine plan, and he cuts off all her hair as a total commitment of her to Christ. And then they don't know what to do, so they get her to a convent, a Benedictine convent, and then later she'll start an order. But Francis continued in this very simple way. And this simple way is outlined mostly in the Beatitudes. And so I challenge you, and I challenge myself after I'm done here, to go and to read the Beatitudes again. Blessed are the poor. That's how it is in Luke. In Matthew, it's blessed are the poor in spirit. But are we dedicating ourselves and really hearing the call of Christ to follow him? Francis did that, and it's a point of inspiration. As he gave away everything he had, as he tried to be just like totally giving and giving, as he tried to be totally accepting of anyone who wanted to come and join him as a Franciscan, as he did this totally open thing, he himself was filled with joy. Imagine I have to think about giving up more so that I too might have this joy of St. Francis. It's a good day. And a day I invite you to join St. Francis in following the words of Jesus as he has said them. And let me hope that this brings me and that this brings you to joy.